talked a lot in previous models about sourcing from China, but China is not the only place that you can source from. There's the entire world. The advantage of China is the wheels are really greased. I mean, China is the world's factory. Let's be honest about it. They're set up for it. They're set up for small batch production. You go to someone in the United States and say, hey, I want 500 or something. They may not even return your phone call. You go to China and say, hey, I want 500 or something. They're like, okay, we'll get that made for you. So China, there's a lot of advantages to China, but there's also sometimes some disadvantages. And there's some things that other countries are actually better at than China. And India is a perfect example. India has a lot of really cool wood things, a lot of really craft work type of things, some great textiles. And so what I want to do in this module is actually bring on another guest who's an expert in sourcing in India. Her name is Meghla, and she's been living in Southeast Asia for years. She's based out of Singapore, but often goes back to India. She runs sourcing trips to India, and she's connected to a lot of the top manufacturers and the top people in India. And so in this module, she's going to join us and talk about some of the advantages of sourcing in India and how you would go about looking at India if you want to make that a place that you want to take a look to source your products. So Meghla, welcome. Glad to have you here.
In this module, I'm going to be talking about how you can source private label products from India. The module is going to be done in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to focus on why you should consider sourcing from India, what are some pros and cons, what kinds of products you can source, and how to find and vet suppliers. And then in part two, we're going to cover logistics, quality control, paying suppliers, and I'll also share some tips and advice. A bit of background before we get started. So I've been working in the Asia sourcing industry for almost 20 years. I started my career in India. I worked in the Philippines, in China. I lived and worked in China for 9 years, and I'm currently based in Singapore. When I was in China, I produced these manufacturing research reports on how products are manufactured in China. And these reports were basically for buyers, for importers who wanted to source products from China. And I visited hundreds of factories, talked to lots of suppliers and buyers, and got a really good understanding of how products are manufactured and also what kinds of issues buyers face when they're sourcing products from China. And I also ran a sourcing agency when I was based in China. Over the last 3 years, I've been focused on helping Amazon e-commerce sellers source products from India because I believe that India is fast emerging as an alternative sourcing destination. And a lot of Amazon sellers want to diversify their sourcing. And I believe that India is a really good place to source private label products. So let's get started with part one. Why should you consider sourcing from India? One of the main reasons to consider sourcing from India is the unique products that you can find. Now, there are a lot of different types of products that are available, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the main categories that I find Amazon sellers source from India are these handcrafted products that are made from materials like wood, metal, glass, ceramic. And there are a lot of skilled artisans in India that produce these products that are very high quality and unique products. And these can actually, help you get a higher profit margin. Because these are premium products, they can actually command a higher price when you're selling them on Amazon, and they can potentially have a higher profit margin. And there are different types of categories, but one of the categories that I find that is very, very unique to India is the different types of fabrics that are found. Now, in fact, in India, each state is known for a different type of fabric, and there's a huge variety in terms of how the fabric is made, what kind of embellishments are used, the embroidery, and all sorts of things. So a lot of different kinds of unique products in India. Another advantage is low MOQs. So because a lot of these products are handcrafted, suppliers are agreeable to selling them in low quantities. And most of the time, the MOQs range from 200 to 500 pieces. Of course, for apparel and things like that, MOQs are higher. But typically for handcrafted products, MOQs are around 200 to 500 pieces. But suppliers can go even as low as 50 pieces. So if you're just wanting to maybe test a product, or if you're new to selling on Amazon, you can source in small quantities. There's also this concept of MOV, which is minimum order value, which basically means that the supplier will say, okay, you can place an order worth, let's say, $3,000 or $5,000, and you can choose multiple SKUs. So that's also very advantageous if you are maybe just starting out or looking to test different types of products. Then a lot of the suppliers that you deal with will speak English quite fluently. And I find that it's easier to communicate with them than it is with maybe a supplier in China, where sometimes things are not understood very clearly, or things may get lost in translation. Also, you can just pick up the phone, talk to them, get on a Zoom call, and it's quite easy to communicate. They can easily understand what you're saying, because India has 22 national languages. And in fact, English is the official language. And a lot of people in different states, they speak English, and that's the way that they communicate with each other, because they can't understand the language that's spoken by people living in other states. There are also no trade tariffs on products that are imported from India into the US. So if you're importing any of these handmade products, for example, the tariff will be between 4 to 6%. Whereas in China, of course, there is the additional tariffs that have been imposed on certain product categories. A lot of suppliers are focusing on eco-friendly products nowadays in India. So if you are looking to venture into this category, India is a really good place to do that, because there's an abundance of natural materials that are available locally. And a lot of suppliers, I find, are moving away from plastic kind of products. In fact, there are some suppliers that don't want to use any plastics in their packaging as well, and they're trying to produce the products very sustainably. And as well as many of the factories run on solar energy. For example, there are some factories that I know they've planted 1,000 trees around the studio, around their factory area. So there is a lot of focus on giving back to the earth, to the community, and also just to manufacture products in a sustainable way. So if you're looking to build that kind of a brand that is centered around eco-friendly products and sustainable production, then India is a really good place to do that. Labor costs are lower in India. So if you are looking to source a product that is more labor intensive, that requires more manual labor, then it may be more cost effective to source it from India. Of course, it also depends on raw material availability and whether the equipment and the facilities are available to make those products. But in general, let's say you have things like apparel, basic apparel like shirts, pants, those things. You might find that they are cheaper to produce in India than they are in China, just because labor costs are lower. In fact, in China, overall production costs have been going up for quite a few years. And this is one reason why a lot of the apparel manufacturers, the large apparel manufacturers, have been moving their low-end kind of production out of China to countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and India. You'll also find that in general, the people that you deal with, they are more aligned with Western values. So it's easier for you to work with them. And of course, India also has good relations with the West. So it is a good idea to diversify your sourcing and not depend on one country entirely, especially if the relations, the geopolitical relations between the West and China are sort of unstable during these times. There are some disadvantages of sourcing from India. So first of all, there's a limited product range. And whereas in China, you can practically source anything and everything, in India, there are specific product categories that are very popular or that are produced in a competitive way. And for example, there are no electronics. So if you're looking for electronics or any type of plastic product or silicone product, India is not the place to go for that. India is more for products that are made from natural materials. Sometimes you'll find that logistics service providers may not be familiar with FBA requirements. So this is something just to keep in mind. And it is changing as more and more Amazon sellers are going to source from India. But I find that sometimes, especially if you're not based in the US, if you're based outside of the US and sending shipments into the US directly to Amazon FBA, sometimes these freight forwarders may not be familiar with that process. And you may need to, check with them if they really have done shipments for Amazon FBA in the past. Because some of the products are handmade, the lead times can be longer. So typically, for these wood or metal kind of items, the lead times would be anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. So that's something that you need to get used to if you are sourcing these products. Of course, for other types of products like bags, accessories, those lead times may be shorter, but for handmade products, sometimes the lead times are longer. The infrastructure is not as developed as it is in China. For example, there are no high speed rails and things like that, but it's not bad. I mean, it's there are lots of different ports in India. There's the customs is pretty efficient, and overall the export infrastructure is improving because the government is placing a lot of emphasis on improving exports and the overall infrastructure as a whole. But things do move a bit slow in India, so it's not happening as fast as it has happened in China. So let's take a look at some of the products that you can source from India. And these are all the Amazonable products. There are, of course, a lot of other, like industrial kind of products that are manufactured, but we're not going to be covering those over here. So the biggest category that I see Amazon sellers importing is home decor and gifts. And these are products that are made from, again, natural materials like metal, wood, ceramic, jute, cotton, and glass. And these could be items like, things that are used for decorations, maybe shelves, wall shelves, or plant hangers that are made from macrame or jute. Or these could be things like, candle holders or gift boxes, things like that. And then there's a lot of kitchen and tableware items as well. So again, these are made from metal. These could be like cutting boards, cutlery, salad bowls, a lot of other different types of kitchen and tableware items. Furniture, and this is mostly wood furniture. Furnishings, there's a huge variety of furnishings that's available. And most of the furnishings are made of cotton. So if you're looking for things like cushion covers, rugs, placemats, there's a huge variety, and a lot of different types of finishes are available for these kinds of furnishings. And they can use a lot of different kinds of effects on these, cushion covers and other types of furnishings. And they can also combine different types of effects and different types of handwork. A lot of these furnishings, specifically cushion covers and all, they are kind of handmade. So you could have different types of effects that are combined on one cushion cover to create a very unique effect. There's also fashion products. So there's jewelry. There's lots of artificial jewelry, accessories such as bags, belts, footwear, scarves, and footwear. Footwear is also another big category. There are some sports footwear manufacturers, plus there are also leather, formal shoes and other types of footwear like sandals. Textile and apparel is one of India's biggest export categories. And most of the textiles that are and apparel that are exported from India are made from cotton, denim, silk, or wool. And in fact, cotton is most commonly used for apparel because India is the largest producer of cotton in the world. In fact, India produces 26% of the world's cotton. So there is, plenty of local availability of cotton, which is why cotton is really one of the main raw materials and one of the main fabrics that are used for textiles and apparel. There's also a lot of organic cotton being produced, and there are, in fact, a lot of GOTS certified factories in India. If you are looking to source organic products, whether it's organic textiles or furnishings or apparel, lots of different options are available. Eco-friendly products, that's another good category, as I was just mentioning. And I'll show you some examples of these eco-friendly products as well. Then there's genuine leather and also superfoods. So if you are a bit adventurous and you'd like to, maybe consider private labeling tea or coffee or spices or other types of superfoods like, turmeric, for example, or ashwagandha, those kinds of spices and superfoods are also being exported from India. So this is a map, and I won't go through the entire map, but as you can see, a lot of the production is concentrated in the north, and most of the handcrafted items are actually done in the north. And there are a couple of cities that are pretty important. So first of all, there's the city of Moradabad, where all of the metal and home and wood products are made. And then there's a city of Panipat where all of the home furnishings are made. So similar to China, in India as well, there are production centers where specific products are manufactured. And most of the production centers are by material. So if you'll notice, most of the production centers over here focus on specific material types. So this is metal and wood. This is ceramics. And this is wooden furniture and jewelry. So they're mostly focused and they specialize in specific materials. So just a couple of examples of the different types of fabrics and products that you can find. They're beautiful block printed fabrics, jacquard fabrics, handloom fabrics, and these are known as craft fabrics as well. And the advantage of using or sourcing such fabrics or producing products made from such fabrics is that the MOQs are much lower because these are handloom fabrics. They're actually woven on a handloom, manually. They're not done on a power loom. So the MOQs can be much lower for this. This is a map of all of the different types of fabrics that are available from India. And as you can see, each and every state has a distinct type of fabric that they produce, that they are known for. And the types of fabrics vary depending on, maybe the printing technique, or it could be how they are woven, or maybe these embellishments. Like here in the state of Rajasthan, this kind of fabric is very popular. It's very colorful, and they even use like little mirrors inside of the fabric. So each state has a distinct type of fabric that they're known for. These are some examples of eco-friendly products. This is very kind of unique category, and there are a couple of suppliers in India that do this. So these are bags that are made from sustainable materials such as cork, cactus leather, and pineapple fibers. Very biodegradable, very eco-friendly products. There are also suppliers of areca palm leaf and sugarcane waste disposable dinnerware. And a lot of Amazon sellers, in fact, were sourcing these products by the containers. And of course, now it's very saturated on Amazon, but these were doing quite well from India. More eco-friendly products. So jute is very, very popular from India, and it's there's a lot of local production, and there are lots of different factories that do bags and other types of jute products. And then fabric. So this is PET fabric, and this is basically made from recycled water bottles, and they can produce rugs, cushion covers, and all types of different products from these recycled PET bottles fabric. This is one company that I was just referring to. They actually produce organic cotton, and the entire factory runs on solar energy. So not only do they produce eco-friendly products, but they're also trying to do it in a sustainable way. So this is a trend that I see increasingly becoming popular in India, and more suppliers are trying to go the eco-friendly route and also trying to focus on sustainable production. Some of the metal and wood home products that are manufactured, just to give you an idea, these are some of the wooden products that you can find. Of course, these are just examples, but you can go to suppliers with your own design, and you can say that, hey, can you develop this with this for me? So just just be mindful that in terms of the type of wood that is available in India, it's mostly mango and acacia wood that's used. There's not a lot of bamboo wood. China really specializes in bamboo wood, but you won't find that in India. In India, it's mostly mango and acacia. Here are some examples of the furnishings, and these are doormats that are made from coir. Now, coir is a very eco-friendly material. It's actually made from the husk of the coconut, and it's very biodegradable and very, very eco-friendly. Then there are cotton products that are cotton bath mats and cushion covers, all sorts of different furnishings. Okay, so let's talk about how you can find suppliers in India. So the number one thing that you can do is just go to Google and search for any supplier. So just type in the product name that you're looking for and India exporter. And what you'll find is because Google is not blocked in India, most of the suppliers are indexed on Google. You'll be able to find their websites. But keep in mind that a lot of suppliers in India don't update their websites on a regular basis. So even though you might find some basic information about them, you might not find their latest products or their latest catalogs. You might have to email them to get the latest catalogs. Also, you find a lot of supplier directories appear in the top of search results, like Alibaba, India Mart, etc. So you might have to go down search results and just look maybe on page 2 or so to find websites of actual suppliers. There are two main supplier directories to find suppliers in India: Global Sources and Alibaba. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with these two websites. These are also where you go to find most of the China suppliers. Now, these are the two international export-focused directories, and I would recommend starting over here. While most of the suppliers on these two websites are from China, there are a small percentage of India suppliers over here as well. And in fact, both these companies have offices in India, and they very actively recruit suppliers for their website. And what you need to do is, after you do a product search on any of these websites, you've got to use the country location filter. On Alibaba, it's usually at the top. So after doing a search, you can filter by country to see suppliers from India. And on Global Sources, the filter is on the left-hand side. So not many people know this, because you just go do a search and then simply find all of the China suppliers. And usually suppliers from other countries don't even appear on page 1 or even the first few pages of search results on these websites, because the majority of suppliers on these websites are from China. But if you use the country location filter, then you'll be able to see suppliers from other countries as well. Avoid India Mart. Now, India Mart will come up very, very often when you do a search, but do avoid this website. And the reason for that is this is a very domestic focused website. In fact, a lot of the companies over here are trading companies or importers, wholesalers that actually import products from China and sell them in the domestic market. Now, there are manufacturers and export focused companies on India Mart, but you have to dig very deep into the search results and make sure that you vet the suppliers really, really well. So it's a bit risky. So that's why I tell people, as much as possible, try to avoid India Mart when you're searching for suppliers. Now, India Sourcing Network, this is the website that I have launched together with my partners, Margaret and Kevin. And this is basically one platform where you can find everything you need to source products from India. We've got a lot of information related to sourcing from India. So there's some free content. There's an e-commerce seller's guide to sourcing from India. There's a workshop that we're also doing. We also vet suppliers for the website, and there are a lot of suppliers featured on the website as well. And we check to make sure that the suppliers are legitimate companies, that they are manufacturers, and that they are export experienced. So those are the 3 things that we check for all of the suppliers that are featured on the website. And then we also have a lot of service providers. So if you're looking for things like quality control or inspection services or sourcing agencies, freight forwarders, we have companies listed on the website for all of those aspects as well. Then there's also the community aspect, where we have a Facebook group. If you have any questions about sourcing from India, those would be answered there. So here are all of the different types of service providers that are available on the website. So it's basically one platform that provides you all of the connections to suppliers and service providers, as well as the information that you need to source products from India. Another great way to find suppliers is trade shows. Now, there's one trade show that's held in Delhi twice a year. It's called the Delhi Fair. It's organized by the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts. And this fair is known as the Canton Fair of India. And it's held twice a year, April and October. Of course, currently it's on hold, but they're also hosting the Delhi Fair virtually. So this is a great way to, again, find good suppliers, because all of these companies are export focused. They may or may not be manufacturers. There may be some that are, merchant exporters, but they're all exporters, because only exporters can be part of the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts. So what I would suggest is get the supplier directory of this virtual Delhi Fair. And that's a really good high quality list to start with. And at least you're sure that all of these companies are export experienced. Because when you are sourcing from India, you want to avoid sourcing from companies that are domestic focused, because India is a huge market. There's 1.3 billion people in India, and there's a lot of demand for products domestically. So there are a lot of companies that actually produce for the domestic market, but they have no idea of how exports work. They have no idea of the safety standards, of the product requirements, of the design requirements of overseas, suppliers, overseas countries. And so you want to avoid these domestic focused suppliers altogether. Some of them may not even have an import export license. So even if they produce the product for you, they will not be able to ship it out. Another great way to look for suppliers is global trade shows. There are a lot of these, export-focused companies in India that actually exhibit at overseas shows. And of course, many of these shows are not being held currently, but when they are, then you should consider visiting these fairs, and you might be able to find some Indian suppliers there too. And some of these fairs are being held virtually if you want to try looking for them. Another way to look for suppliers is through sourcing agents. Now, there are lots of different types of sourcing agents in India. There are individuals that can help you. There are large companies that have offices in different cities. So all types of sourcing agents. Typically, sourcing agents charge between 5 to 10% as a fee, as a service fee of the order value. And maybe as your order volumes increase, you can negotiate on the service fee, but this is what they typically charge. And basically, sourcing agents would do everything for you, starting from searching for suppliers, negotiating on the price, helping you with sampling. And if they're based in the same city, then they would also go visit the factory and do all of your quality control and inspections too. So this is very advantageous. And in the long term, it can actually help you save costs, because then you're not having to pay a third-party inspection company separately for the inspections. It is important to vet sourcing agents as well, because you want to make sure that they are legitimate companies. And one of the things you want to ask them is, what products do they specialize in? Because there are different individuals or sourcing agencies that specialize in different categories. So you do want a company that specializes in the category that you are specifically looking for. Now, many of these or some of these sourcing agents will ask you to enter into an exclusive agreement with them. And they will say that, hey, you can't work with any other sourcing agent when you are sourcing from India. Don't sign that contract. Run away from any sourcing agency that asks you to sign that contract. Now, sometimes very large buyers, they sign exclusive contracts with sourcing agencies, but I don't think there's any need for smaller, mid-size, e-commerce Amazon sellers to enter into such exclusive agreements. Also, work with the sourcing agent as a partner, as an extension of your team. Don't think of a sourcing agent as an additional expense that is, adding to your product cost, but they are sort of your eyes and ears on the ground. They are your boots on the ground. So work with them as a team, and they are there to, represent you. Also, try to ensure that the sourcing agent that you choose is in the same city that where your factory is located, or that they can travel easily to the city if needed, because that really helps. And in fact, sometimes sourcing agents, they will travel to the factory multiple times while production is going on. They'll go there when production is starting. So they'll do like a raw material check, then they'll do midline inspection, and then they'll do a final inspection as well. So if they're based in the same city, it's very advantageous. Another way to find suppliers is these export promotion councils. And these are basically government organizations, and their main task is to increase exports of different industries within India. And most of these companies have databases of exporters. So what you can do is search for these export promotion councils, look on their website for supplier lists, and then start contacting those lists. And you might see something like this. This is the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts, and they have the list of all of their members listed over here. They've got the product categories, the email addresses, phone number. Now, they may not have a lot of information about the company. You may not know if the company is a manufacturer or a merchant exporter, or which countries they export to, or what sort of setup they have. But at least you have a list to start with, and at least you know that all of these companies are export focused. Okay, let's talk about how you can vet suppliers. Now, let's say you found a supplier on Alibaba, Global Sources, or Google. It's always a good idea to verify the information that they're giving you. In sourcing, they say that you should trust but verify. So there are a couple of ways that you can verify different things, and there are a few things that you should verify. First of all, you should verify that they are a manufacturer. if, of course, it is important for you to source via a manufacturer, because it does happen sometimes that there are companies on, let's say Alibaba, and they claim to be a manufacturer, but they're actually a merchant exporter or somebody who's just, reselling products from a manufacturer. So just be aware of that. That does happen. So what you can do is check their GST record. GST is a goods and services tax, and all companies in India need to file their GST every month, and they need to have a GST number. And the GST certificate basically gives some information about the nature of their business. So you can Google GST plus supplier name, and usually the GST number is available publicly for most companies. Once you find the GST, go to this URL over here, and you can just type in check GST number India, and you'll be able to find this URL. Enter the GST number, and then you'll be able to see some information about the supplier. So this is some basic information that you'll be able to see: the name of the company, when they were registered, what kind of taxpayer they are, if the GSTN number is active, what is the type of company that this is. And then this is the most important thing that you need to look for: nature of core business activity. Now, if you really do want to source from a manufacturer, make sure that this over here specifies manufacturer. And then there's also some additional activities that they have signed up for, but this is their main core business. And then you can also see that they have chosen the different products that they specialize in or produce. Another thing you can see over here is their filing table. So you can see which months they have filed their GST. And if there is a gap over here, if they have not filed their GST for a certain number of months, then you know that that's a red flag. And you should maybe go ask them why they haven't signed their GST, or maybe run away from the factory, run away from the supplier. Similarly, you can also check their import-export code. So every exporter needs to have this code. Without this code, they're not able to export from India. So again, try to Google IEC code plus the supplier name. Now, mostly IEC code is not available publicly. Sometimes it is, but if it's not available publicly online, then you can just ask the supplier to give you their code. Once you find the code, go to this website, enter the code, and again, you can do a search, check IEC code India, and you'll be able to find this website. And then once you're there, pop the IEC number here, and then you'll get some basic information about the company, about their IEC code. So for example, you'll be able to tell if their IEC code is suspended or not. And this is the most important thing that you need to look for. What is the category of export? What kind of company this is? So you can see over here, this is a merchant exporter. And merchant exporter is similar to like a trading company in China. So let's take a look at another screenshot. This is another company that I had done a search for. And you can see over here that their category of exporters is manufacturer exporter. So this is a very easy way to tell whether a company is a manufacturer or a trading company. And all of this information is publicly available. It's, all of the websites are in English, so it's very easy to access all of this information. This sort of information is also available in China, but most of the websites are in Chinese. So in India, it's just easier to do this background research. Okay, so this is the end of part 1. And if you do want to get more information about sourcing from India, we do have an India sourcing guide in the resources section that you can download for free. Also, we have a Facebook group. Just search for India sourcing on Facebook and join the Facebook group. And I will see you in part 2.